Hello and welcome to the big picture. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel is considered the architect of the integration of the numerous Indian states following the end of British rule. Though the complex task of physical integration was accomplished before the adopting of the Indian Constitution in 1950, the real integration, as V.P. Menon had pointed out, was to take place in the minds of the people. Vice President Hamid Ansari, a scholar in his own right, delivering the Sardar Patel Memorial Lecture recently, dwelt about this problem of emotional integration in his over 2,500 word speech, raising many issues and concerns. Hamid Ansari's deep understanding of the Indian society and its problems, as well as the democratic structures and its efforts to grapple with the diversity, comes across in this lecture. The questions he has raised and the concerns he expresses requires a deeper debate, which is what this special edition of the Big Picture today will try to attempt in the next hour. To discuss this, I have a very eminent panel of intellectuals, some of the best minds in the country. I have Professor T.K. Oommen, an eminent social scientist and emeritus professor, JNU, B.G. Verghese, an eminent columnist and author, Professor Aditya Mukherjee, Professor of Contemporary History in the JNU, and Professor Sukhdev Thorat, Chairman, Indian Council of Social Science Research. Welcome to all of you. Okay, Professor Oommen. V.P. Menon's remark,
Yes.
V.P. Menon's, the real integration had to take place in the minds of the people. Where are we when it comes to that?
You see, when you talk about integration taking place in the minds of the people, you should ask the question, what are the bases on which these integrations can take place? Is it religion? Some places it is religion. Language? Sometimes geography, or a secular ideology. Now, as I say it, it is nearly impossible for India to have that kind of integration because we have a different concept of nation, quote unquote. Because nation state as an idea has come from West Europe,
Right.
where political and cultural boundaries are said to be coexisting. If it were not coexisting, they did everything that is possible, that the culture of the minorities of smaller groups have been liquidated and the majority culture dominates. India's vision, India's model is exactly different, opposite. If I may say so. Therefore, it is not simply a question of recognizing diversity, it is more than that. Celebrating diversity.
Absolutely.
And if we are celebrating diversity, the question of integration will have to be approached, to my mind, much more cautiously. I will only say at the moment that we have given the world a new model of nation making. For some time, I've been telling that nation state is an obsolete concept, at least for India. We have to think in terms of a national state. A national state is that which not only accommodates, but as I said, celebrates diversity. Whereas a nation state wants to uniformity, ignoring all inconvenient cultures.
Right.
Our model is different.
Why is emotional integration eluding us? Professor Oommen, we were discussing various things. Integration, you seem to have a point of view as far as integration is concerned.
Yeah, because integration gives you an idea of assimilation, integrating everything and everybody. But this goes exactly the opposite of unity in diversity, the original idea. We want a unity, but without necessarily destroying the diversity. And this is something.
So you think that the use of the word integration itself is a questionable. I would like to get
Yes,
Mr. Verghese's
that's
view
my-
on this. Just let me get Mr. Verghese's view on this. Integration, the use of the word integration itself, Professor Oommen seems to have a problem with.
I would prefer coexistence.
Coexistence.
Well, I'm not going to call about the language. If you explain what you mean by integration, that's all right. But I do have problems with words like joining the mainstream.
Ah.
Who constitutes
Who constitutes mainstream?
the mainstream? It becomes we and they. It's hierarchical. Also, it's separate.
And also
Now,
also the use of the word mainland.
Well, mainland we borrowed from China.
Yeah.
It really should be, that's only used with regard to the northeast.
Northeast.
The better term would be the heartland. Heartland in the sense of a geographical heartland. But one can think of appropriate language there. But I feel that the objective needs to be explained, that we want maybe acculturation, not assimilation, and let all these coexist. And as
In
often
fact,
said is that we don't want to steamroller our diversity, but as has been repeatedly said, and here too, we want to celebrate it. It's like a garden with many flowers and fragrances and colors which bloom at different times. And that constitutes the beauty
Of diversity.
of it, yes.
Yes, Professor Thorat, first if you want,
And then I'll take the same point. The manner in which initially the process of the nation in the making occurred. This idea, whether the word integration was used, it wasn't used in the beginning. Because when you say it is a process, then you are not making it into a flat thing. Was that the regional diversities, that the greatest Assamese poet, the greatest Telugu poet, the greatest Tamil writer, they were also the greatest nationalists. There was absolutely no contradiction between establishing your regional identity and the blossoming of each petal of the flower and the flower blossoming together. There was absolutely no difficulty with that. I think the difficulty has arisen in other areas. One, as has been mentioned by several panelists today, on the issue of inequality. Unequal access is one, sometimes based on religion, sometimes based on caste. You see, and the issue is that here is where communalism and casteism can actually flourish if you're not able to address the issue of unequal access. And that is, I think, the challenge of the future. That how are we going to, everybody agrees that inequality is bad. Now, how are we going to deal with it? I think the main challenge is how are we going to deal with it. In that, I would like to just say one thing.
Yes.
Because I think the challenge is, and we can, look at how all of us respond to this. The challenge is that are we going to meet this challenge of unequal access in a manner which reduces the difference, or in a manner which freezes the difference, which creates a freezing of the identity. Now that is the issue that we have to look at.
Freezing of the identity, Professor Woman? Is that possible?
No. I don't think not only it's not possible, it's not desirable.
It is not desirable.
Because, again, you go back to the West European idea. The point was you surrender your identity and get equality. Our model again is different.
And rise above your identity.
That's right. Well, in certain contexts, yes. In certain contexts, no. Because if I belong to a particular linguistic group, for example,
Exactly.
how can I
Rise above that.
rise above that? To a certain extent, I'll retain it, but that is not to be understood as a replacement or displacement.
Why should you rise above?
Exactly. You can think in terms of, particularly language is very important, because you can have three languages, internalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I have seen small children who have internalized 4 or 5 languages.
That's right. Tribal people particularly do
Yes.
that. And therefore, I think some work is to be done at the very level of conceptualizing India. What is India? This question has been asked right from the beginning.
The other things that were mentioned, language, linguistic states has been criticized by many people. I think it was sensible to administer people in their own language. But our language policy has, I think, been a disaster. If I want to learn French, Japanese, Portuguese, I know where to go.
Yes.
If I want to learn Gujarati
In Delhi, you don't know where
or
to go.
Telugu, I don't know where to go.
Absolutely.
There are no books. There are no children's books.
Right.
There are no keyboards. There are no
And there is
simultaneous interpretation
and there has never been a serious effort to get, say, a North Indian to learn a South Indian language or a South Indian to learn a West Indian language.
Well, we have
There's
this bogus,
never been any serious.
we have this thoroughly bogus 3-language formula which has simply not worked.
Yes.
But to facilitate it, you see, we not learn to make the distinction between language as commerce. To get a job, that's why
Right.
people want English. They
Right,
think
right,
with
right.
world knowledge you'll get a better income,
Yes.
and you'll be looked upon as a superior person.
But that's also a fact on the ground.
Could be, but by say to distinguish between commerce and culture. Languages need to be kept alive for cultural reasons, and our indigenous languages, many of our dialects, are going away, which I think is a great loss. As I say, to go back to the analogy of the garden, You have some rare plants which occasionally bloom. They add to the beauty of that garden.
Absolutely.
Don't let them be eliminated willfully or by...
in trying to create uniformity.
The other is our teaching of history. What is the history of India? The history of India is the history of Aryabhat. Who knows the history of Kerala, of the Cholas and the Pandyas, of Kalinga, of Gujarat? No one. Who knows anything about the Northeast? Within the Northeast, which has a grudge against the rest of the country for feelings of neglect and so on, the history of one part of the Northeast is not known to the other. So we have bred this ignorance. We have done nothing to bridge this. And I think these are all very important factors
Yes.
that have aggravated this sort of problem.
Professor Oommen,
See,
the
let's
point
agree.
raised by
That's
Professor
I'm
Thorat,
responding to Professor Thorat. Let's agree that we have had multiple traditions. The question is not to reject a particular tradition and replace it by some other tradition. The issue is selective retention and selective rejection. Who retains it, who rejects it? At least the community partly should have some role in it. Otherwise, what will happen is the state will dictate everything and others will have to follow. Then it is not really democracy. I'm not referring to Kap Panchayat. I agree with you 102% that some of the practices which are going on are not in consonance with democratic state and constitutional right. There we must take a very hard and harsh position. But because of Mr. Varghese again and again said of vote bank politics, some groups are not willing, in fact all groups are unwilling to do it. But let me just give you one example. Although we always talk about negatively, contemptuously and rightly perhaps about vote bank politics, I'm sure you have read the analysis of the latest US election. Mr. Obama, a non-white or a black, the highest percentage of the black vote went to him.
92%.
Yes. Followed by the
Hispanics,
followed by Asian Americans. And the largest percentage of vote went to his opponent, white votes. The point I'm trying to make is...
It was dubbed as the Mandalization of America.
That's right. Whatever is the term that you use, identity of a certain kind simply will persist. All your state ways, all your legislative mechanisms are there in place. But you must not try to push it also too soon. There is a way of doing that. Even the manner in which, again, please don't misunderstand me, I'm not a supporter of Kap Panchayat, but even the manner in which Kap Panchayat is operating also. For example, they have pronounced absolutely clearly against the dowry system.
Yes.
There's a plus point there.
Absolutely.
So my only thing is, you must try to use community resources wherever
selectively.
it is. Yes, selectively, wherever. That's what I said. Selective retention and selective rejection.
Selective retention. Professor Mukherjee, this is Professor Oommen and then Mr.
I think
Varghese.
the difficulty about identity politics as it is usually used, we use it in singular.
Right.
I have all along made a distinction between hegemonic identity and emancipatory identity. See, those who want to perpetuate their hegemony, that's one kind of identity. Brahmins also want reservation, Kshatriyas also want reservation, you know that. Yeah. So, therefore, it's not that only the down and out, the wretch of the earth is asking for reservation, others are also asking. So, first of all, we must be very clear that there are people who want to perpetuate their traditional hegemonic identity. To that, we will say no, because you have enough opportunities in the general pool. But having said this, we must recognize the emancipatory identity, the urge for it. You look at the term Dalit, which is a very recent term. If you go back in history, I've done it once, this in a Times of India article, it is horrible.
Yes.
Having said this, let us also say, if your starting point is quite different, if I am here and you are here, equality of opportunity will not help. You have to think in terms of equality of conditions, so that available opportunities can be drawn. And when we talk about reservation, if you look at it very carefully, it is an attempt to create equality of conditions so that equality of opportunity becomes meaningful.
Okay. Thanks to all of you. This has been a fascinating debate. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. B.G. Varghese, Professor Oman, Professor Aditya Mukherjee, and Professor Sukhdev Thorat. Thank you very much for watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time on Monday.